You're listening to Stories Behind the Songs with Chris Blair. For more information, you can find us on Instagram and TikTok at SBT Songs, or check us out at chrisblair.com. Welcome to another episode of Stories Behind the Songs. I'm your host, Chris Blair, and Dustin Ebach is my guest this week. Justin has done so much in his career so far, being in Nashville. He was named SESAC Songwriter of the Year twice and won the CMA Triple Play Award in 2019. Now, if you're not sure what that is, a CMA Triple Play Award is given to songwriters who have secured 3 number 1 hits within a 12-month period. This is something that is not easy to accomplish and is highly respected and celebrated when a songwriter is able to swing it. We're going to dive into those 3 number 1s and many more on this week's episode. Justin has had so many cuts, and a good handful of those made it to number 1. A few of his hits that we're going to talk about is Here Tonight by Brett Young, Down to One by Luke Bryan, Good Girl by Dustin Lynch, and Singles You Up by Jordan Davis. You're also going to hear the story behind one that he wrote for Dan and Shay called When I Pray For You. He is going to take us into the room when he wrote Singles You Up for Jordan Davis. You'll find out that this hit came from a casual conversation between him and his co-writers. This song also ended up being Jordan's very first single and his very first number 1. Other stories that we're going to dive into this week include Justin writing a song for Luke Bryan and having Luke's wife tell him he needed to put it on the album, going from strangers to co-writers with some of Nashville's greats, learning and developing the track side of writing, and a deep dive into all of his smashes. Justin takes us behind the scenes of so many cool stories in this episode, and I can't wait for you to hear them. Give us a follow, stay up to date when new episodes drop with some of Nashville's greatest, and let us know what you think. If there are any specific stories, artists, songwriters, whatever that you want to hear, shoot us a DM. We'd love to connect with you and hear how you want to make Stories Behind the Songs podcast your favorite podcast that you listen to. We also want to give a special shout out to all of our sponsors, Sennheiser, Imperfect Esthetician, and All Clear In-Ears. If you're looking for a great set of in-ear monitors, make sure to take advantage of our code SBT Songs and get 10% off at checkout. All right, let's get to it. Here is my buddy and this week's guest, Dustin Ebach. Hey everybody, we are back here at the listening room, and today I am with my buddy Dustin Ebach. How you doing?
Good, man. You?
Good.
Appreciate you having me.
Yeah, man. It's good to sit down and just kind of dive in. Let's kind of, I want to touch on, you've got some great songs. I want to make sure that we hit the stories behind your number 1s and some recent stuff and, all that. But before we even get into that, what got you into songwriting in the first place?
Man, for me, it was really natural. Like, I didn't grow up in like a overly musical family or anything. Me and my brother were kind of the ones who he got a guitar and then I was like, well, I'll play drums. And so I played on shoeboxes and kind of set them up. And I just kind of had a natural thing for rhythm and all that, and we would just play songs, playing in the church, you know what I mean, at the youth group band and all that stuff. And then I got into band in high school and middle school, and that really kind of cultivated the understanding of music. Yeah, not just like, oh, I like this chord and this chord together, but understanding how now we use the number rules here in Nashville, but before it was the music theory side of it where you're using these different chords and scales and how it all comes together. And then there was always that side of me that just kind of always wanted to tinker and make my own melodies and stuff like that. And as I'm learning other stuff, you know what I mean? A lot of it was classical, jazz, those sorts of things, but then just kind of taking some of that and putting it together in my own way, and then eventually putting lyrics to it. And so when I actually decided I wanted to do something in music, it was kind of between moving to LA and pursuing scoring for films and TV, or moving to Nashville and songwriting. So It was kind of always those two battling paths of do I want to do more on the technical side and the more instrumental side, or do I want to do, you know, the lyric side? And obviously I moved to Nashville, and glad I did.
Yeah,
So,
we are too. We got some great songs.
oh,
but
I appreciate it.
man, that's like that's kind of crazy. Like growing up in a family that like not there's not a lot of music. Like you don't hear a lot of stories like that. Even people that do grow up in a lot of music don't really get all the theory and you know, all that behind. So that's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, it for me, music was very technical. You know what I mean? Even in college when I came here, like I was still taking the music theories and all that stuff, and just really the groundwork of music. And now I've done away with probably 60% of that, and I don't use it. You know, the moving parallel fifths I do every day, and that's like, you know, the anti in classical music. But it's like I just, you know, you kind of now the understanding of just like the normal things that you know it inside and out. So,
right. Yeah. That's very cool.
Yeah.
So so what year was it that you moved to Nashville?
I moved here in 2008. I went to Belmont and did music production there.
Yep.
On the production side, or music business production. And I graduated May 2011.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's your process like in a writer's room?
Man, it's different every day, and I think the thing about songwriting that you really learn is like it just constantly changes. Like, you know, like I find myself now doing more prep before writes, probably more than I've ever done. As far as song ideas and stuff go, you're doing that 24/7 out live. Just writing.
Are you
down
one of those
little
guys
things.
I
have a note of 1,000. Sometimes it's just a word.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That you see and you're just like, oh, there's something on that word, and maybe you pair it with another word down the road, but you're just like, oh, that's just a cool, you know, thing. Or sometimes it's a full idea. Sometimes, I mean, I have full verse choruses written in these notes. You know, I have tons of stuff, and probably most of them I'll never use, but then you get that little thing here and there. And the notes get better, I feel like, as you've been doing this longer and longer, because you know what you need.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the phrase, like, there's a song there. You know what I mean? Like when somebody says a title in a room and you're going around and everybody's throwing out ideas, it's like you really look, is this like a cool line, or is this a title and that's like a song? You know what I mean? And it's like distinguishing between the two, I think, is important. And so a lot of the things you write down are just cool words that maybe you want to throw in a song, that it's like, hey, that's a word that you don't hear all the time, or it's a line, and then every once in a while you get the full-on idea that you can kind of expand upon, and there's a song there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So would you say that you're more focused on the lyrics then?
Well, for me, I don't know what it is. I think I appreciate it. It's funny because I'm really musical in what I do, just naturally, like just growing up around it, and melody has always come pretty naturally to me. So lyric, I think you appreciate the thing that you're not.
Sure. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you don't just naturally gravitate towards.
Yeah.
But me, over time, like lyric makes me fall in love with a song. You know what I mean? Like written word is just like very powerful to me. The melody, like somebody would be like, oh, that's an incredible melody. And that is never the thing that catches me.
Yeah.
You know, now granted, I've always loved the Candy Pop hit, you know what I mean? That's out there. You know what I mean? Like growing up, I didn't buy albums, you know, and I think that's one of the things that shaped me musically is I didn't love like track, 7 on, this record. Like it was like, no, I went to Walmart when they still sold the singles, and I would buy the single and I would listen to that. You know what I mean? I just wanted to listen to that over and over and over again. And so I think that cultivated some of the just, I don't know, it was never the weird song that got me. You know what I mean? It was always the hit.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. So I think the combination of that lyric, that melody is what I truly love now.
Yeah.
But, that's through growing over the years and really figuring out, oh, that's people connect with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
well, let's dive into some lyrics then.
Yeah.
So you've got number ones with Brett Young, Luke Bryan, Dustin Lynch. Let's dive into the stories behind the songs of some of those.
Yeah, perfect.
And I know Here Tonight has a great story.
Yeah, Here Tonight has a really good one. Yeah, it's one of my favorites, to be honest. Yeah.
So walk us through the whole thing, how the idea came about, and the whole story.
Well, so the whole story, I went out on the road with Brett Young, me, Ben Caver did, and we just kind of stayed on the bus for a few days with him while he played shows, and then during the day we'd kind of write here and there. And it was while Brett was opening for the Lady A tour, and he basically we're there during the day, we're writing some songs, and then one night we're all hanging after the show, and on the bus walks Charles Kelly, and at the time I didn't know Charles Kelly. That was like my first interaction with him. Charles and I are good friends now, write pretty often, but he comes on, he's like, "What are y'all doing?" He's like, "You guys writing tonight?" And we're like, "No, I don't think we're writing or anything." He's like, "Well, I want to write with you guys, tomorrow." And we're like, "Okay." And like at the time, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, like this is Charles Kelly. Like this is crazy." And so anyways, the next day he texts Ben Caver, because Ben and him had known each other previously, and he's like, it was like 9:30 or 10 a.m. He's like, "Hey, did you guys start yet?" And we're like, "No, I think Brett's still asleep," because he stays up pretty late. And so anyways, he's like, "Well, come over. I've got some ideas." And so, he gets on there and he's like, "Here, I'll just play it for you." He's like, "I've got this thing, guys. I've got this thing. Come check it out." And we're like, kind of, let me get the mic so it's positioned, but he just kind of sits down and he's like, "If ever I get lost in your eyes tonight." And we're like, that's, it's cool, but it's also Charles Kelly, so it's like he sings anything, and it's just like awesome and everything. And we start playing with it. We kind of finish out that verse and everything, and he's like, "I've got this one other part." He goes, "I think it's the chorus," and he's like, "I think I would break into something like, let's just stay here tonight." And at the time he was just going to the 4, but then we changed it. We started going to the 2. And then to the 4 on that.
Yeah.
And we were like, "Man, that's awesome." And he's like, "I think that's the chorus." And I was like, "I don't know, man. I think you need like a little bit more movement, kind of on the front side of that chorus." And he's like, "What do you mean?" And I kind of was like, and I didn't sing it verbatim, but I was like, "We can just stay here in this minute, lose all track of time. Let the world spin on without us for a while." And he's like, "Okay, I love that." And so we kind of went back and forth, and we kind of formed that chorus. So it was always with the goal of launching into that, let's just stay here tonight piece. And so, it was a pretty special moment. And then Brett kind of came in during that.
Brett woke up.
Yeah. Brett woke up. No, but he came in and he was just like, he's like, "I kind of see this piece more for me," and stuff like that, and kind of moved some stuff around. And then we kind of finished out the rest of the song.
Yeah.
But I remember when we were done with it, Charles was like, he's like, "Man, I'm buying everybody watches when this song goes number 1." And I gotta say, he did. He bought us all these watches.
That's awesome.
He got them engraved and everything. And so that was a pretty special, especially for me, like, you getting to write with one of your heroes at the time, and and now we've created a really good writing relationship, and I worked with Lady A lot on their stuff over the years, and it was a really cool situation. So
that's very cool. So when what was the process? How long did it take after you guys finished writing that day on the bus till Brett put it out?
Oh man, that one's tough.
Pull that mic.
Yeah, I would say it was probably, that one is probably 3 months till it got cut, and then we were the first single off that second record. So it was kind of when he was ready to go back to the next cycle.
Yeah.
I'd have to look at the date exactly, but but I would say it was probably a few months till it got cut, and then it went for ads a couple months later.
Yeah.
So Yeah. So that was still there's some things in this business that I got a little spoiled with at first. Like, like first of all, I had a number one, I had Brett's first number one with Sleep Without You.
Yep.
Which having a number one on a new artist is impossible. And then,
he had his first Sleep Without You number one.
Yep.
And then it was his first, like, how many? 8,
9?
He
had 7 or 8 in a row that all went.
number ones.
Yeah. But then I had, which is, I know we'll get to, Jordan Davis, Singles You Up, which was another new artist. That was literally like, not only a year later, but we wrote that song in September and it went for ads, I believe, in like March or April. So it was fast.
Yeah.
Like they were all like really quick. But again, a brand new artist and it went number one. And it's just one of those situations where you're just like, now you look at that and you go, wow, that was like insane. And thank God for it. I'm by no means bragging about it. I'm like, you round this business long enough and you see some things happen that you're just like, wow, that stuff just doesn't really happen like that, especially in back-to-back years.
Yeah.
Brand new artists having number one. I mean, it's like brand new artists having a number one in a year. Maybe there's 2. So it's like to be on two of those, let's say 4 hypothetically, in 2 years is just, it was really special and cool to be.
Well, it's also a testament to you, bro.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate it.
You are an incredible songwriter. We've known each other for several years now.
Yeah.
You got the CSAC Award, Song of the Year Award in 2017.
Songwriter, yeah.
And 18, right?
I think it was
16 and 17.
I think it was 17 and 19.
Okay.
Yeah.
CMA Triple Play.
Yeah.
I mean, you've not only got, multiple number ones and top 10s, but all these awards too. So I mean, it's
I appreciate it.
You're very humble, which is amazing, but
you
you also you write great songs, dude.
I appreciate it, man. It's a really funny business, the business of music and just to be a part of it. You really kind of come into this community. It's one of the things I love about Listening Room and what y'all do here is I think it's a really good show of just when this town is at its best, it's this stage of like 3 people coming together and writing a song, completely setting ego aside and just going, hey, we're not here to push my ideas or your ideas. We're here to just write the best song, create the best product. And now again, that's the town at its best. That doesn't mean it happens all the time, but it's like, it's just trying, we're all chasing that great song, and when it happens, man, it's pure magic. And I think the longer you're here, like when you come in, you're competitive, you're young, you're all that stuff. But then once you're here, everybody becomes your friends or maybe not even friends, but you're working friends. And so it's more like, I didn't know, Chris DiStefano 3 years ago. And now we write all the time, and we're buddies. And it's like, he's been having hits for 15 years, probably.
Long time.
I was in college and he didn't even know who I was. It's like Blake Pendergrass, a new songwriter in town. It's like he just, he's kind of newer to town. But now we write all the time and he's a good buddy. And I could go down the list of people and it's like, you kind of lose that competitive side and you kind of just go to like, oh, these are all my friends who I'm like, we just want to win together, Yeah. It's pretty cool.
It's one of the it's one of the coolest things I think about Nashville.
Yeah,
it's like you could still have some of that friendly competition. It's like, hey, we all want to write the best songs, but yeah, it's like at the number one parties, it's full of songwriters that are there to support and lift up all of the friends. And it truly is just a big family.
It is. So. It really is. It's a community, and you get to win with a lot of people that you wouldn't normally share something like that with. And so it's cool.
Yeah,
I love it.
This episode is brought to you by Brit Skin Beauty. Located in the beautiful Indulgence Medi Spa in Mount Juliet, Tennessee, Brittany is the go-to esthetician for facials, dermaplaning, microdermabrasion, waxing, lashes, and any skincare products and consultations. So many people in the music industry use her frequently, and her work speaks for itself. To schedule your next consultation or make an appointment, visit britskinbeauty.com or send an email to britskinbeauty@gmail.com.
Let's dive into another song.
Yeah.
How about When I Pray for You? Dan and Shay.
Man, When I Pray for You. Gosh, I won't be able to play anything on that, but I can talk about that. Yeah, that was with Dan and Shay, me and John Knight, and that day was really simple, and just we were in my old room in Curb when I was still signed over there, and they came in and we kind of found that piano vibe.
Yeah.
And kind of created that sound and that vibe. And we found that title. And there was a little bit of wrestling on just like, is that lyrically a place like, Dan and Shay wanted to go at the time, but we kind of landed on it. And I remember John Knight was pretty like, guys, this idea, like, this is great. We can get this here. And so, yeah, so we dug in on it, and, it was really cool. And then it found its way onto the Shack soundtrack, which was, that was not, I mean, I guess I can say that now. It's been enough years. It was not written for that.
Yeah.
It just kind of found its way there, which was cool. I had known about the phenomenon of like the Shack, of what it was, and, the CCM market and everything, but I didn't know about it myself, and then kind of seeing the movie and everything afterwards. It was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
It's funny to see where songs land over time and kind of take their place and find their way, because you're just like, oh, I think we were just in a room talking, and we had this idea. And I remember I had a kid, well, not a kid, one of my kids, about just a few months before that, when we wrote that, and Shay was just having his, I believe, first son. And so that was definitely kind of what tipped them over the edge on, chasing that idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a cool one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How about Down to One?
Man, Down to One is crazy. Man, it's one of my, like, it's one of the best, like, experiences and worst experiences, because I wrote that with Dallas Davidson and Kyle Fishman. And Dallas Davidson is good friends with Luke Bryan.
Yeah.
I believe childhood friends. And so he can send stuff to Luke directly. So we finished that song that day, and he sent it straight to Luke, and Luke loved it. It was like, hold this for me. So they held it, and that song got cut probably 3 months later, which is pretty quick in the scheme of things. And so his album was about to drop here in, like a few months, and Dallas told us, hey, I think we have the first single. Like, Luke's saying this. Well, what I didn't realize is Dallas and Luke mess with each other a lot. So, right,
Luke messes with everybody.
Yeah, Luke messes with everybody. And so, anyways, I found out through Instagram, because Luke got on there and he's like, I'm going to play you my first single. And I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, this is it. He's going to play Down to One. And he doesn't. He plays Knockin' Boots. And it's one of the more frustrating experiences I had in the music business. And so we weren't even on the first part of the album when that song, when it finally dropped. And I was like, man, we went from being the first single to not even being on the album. And they went single 2, single 3, and then they're like, okay, we're doing a deluxe, and you're going to be on that. And I'm like, whatever. At this point, I just gave up on it. You just move on. Because, I mean, that's 6 months to a year later. And so, anyways, when that deluxe piece drops, the song that was on Hot Country, which is a good tell sign of like what they're going to put out to radio, was Down to One. And and I like texted Dallas. I was like, dude, we're on Hot Country. And he's like, man, I didn't want to say anything because last time, you know, I remember what happened and everything. And he's like, but he goes, I think we're going to get the single on this. And I was like, dude, tell me when we have an ad date.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, that's why I didn't say anything. And I was like, well, anyways, we waited. It was another 10 weeks before we got like an official word. But we did get it. And thank God for that one. That was awesome. And come to find out, the reason he put it on hold in the first place was because he was driving in his truck with his wife, and his wife heard it, and she said, "That's our song." She's like, "You got to cut that." So, thank you to Luke Bryan's wife, for saying that, and that was definitely a big win for us.
Yeah.
Probably the biggest. I mean, at the time specifically, I mean, that was like the biggest. You know, everything else had been kind of newer artists for me. So that was like huge to get, just like, you know, and top tier artist to cut and then single a song I was on. I was like, man, that's awesome. So pretty cool experience.
Yeah, that's amazing. I want to make sure that we've got time to dive into Singles You Up.
Yeah.
But before we get there, is there any other, you've got so many great stories, like any other good stories before that one?
I will say Good Girl was pretty cool experience. Again, I was out on the road writing that song, or writing that weekend with Dustin Lynch and another writer named Andy Albert. And we were out and we had a great weekend. We were writing just like what we thought was hit after hit after hit. And so we got to the last day and we were like, should we just, you know, should we write again or should we just, you know, drink and have fun and call it, you know, a weekend? Because I got to do all the tracks when I get back to town. So it's like I had already 4 demos, I think, and then add another one. So 5 demos now that I've got to do. And basically Dustin was like, let's just try for like 45 minutes and see if we get anything. Well, we're like 30 minutes in, we've got nothing. And I remember we started on a different like track vibe or whatever. And then we're like, all right, what are we going to do? We're going to call it. And Andy goes, I got one more idea. And he pulls out Good Girl and he's like, I got it. Good girl. 'Cause I got myself a good girl. And we were like, and Dustin was like, where have you been hiding that? Like, da-da-da. And I start playing that kind of like, I had keys at the time, which the tracks kind of morphed over time. But, and so I kind of start playing with like a Rhodes on there and it kind of had that soulful feel to it. Literally the label that was in Chicago, he was playing a show in Chicago and the label had just been flying out that happened to be flying in. And then literally Dustin looks at me when we finished that song. He goes, I need that song done by the time I come off stage tonight because the whole label's going to be here.
Wow.
And I want to play it for him. And we did. And literally the head of the label looks at Dustin. He goes, well, I think we found your next single. And that song was cut in a month or 2 and it was out to radio in another month or 2.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. Yeah. It's funny, just like some of that stuff was pure magic, man.
Yeah.
And you just like, you know, I don't know if you realize it at the time how just like, because I think you're so worried that it's like, especially when you get news like that it's going to like fall apart. You know what I mean? That you almost don't enjoy how like, again, pure magic that situation was of just like the perfect timing where like Dustin's looking for that song. Because it's like, they're not just looking for a hit. Like they've got to follow their hit that they're about to have with the right song.
Sure.
You know what I mean? It's like, it's not just like, oh, what's the next best song in the slot? It's like, no. They need to find the right puzzle piece.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's like, so to write that, you know, it's different when like you write a hit for an artist when they're releasing a new project. It's like you can kind of get away with more of it, just that best song on that album could be the one. But man, when you're following something up, it's just like, it's got to be that right, you know, fastball down the middle. So
yeah, and to think like, I mean, you're 30 minutes in with nothing when you're like, all right, well, let's just try this for 45.
Yeah.
I mean, you could have easily just cracked one open and been like,
Totally.
all right, it was a great trip. We got 4 great songs.
Totally.
Like,
and none of the other songs got cut.
yeah,
It's crazy,
man.
Yeah, it's nuts, man. It's just like you really are. I mean, you know, you're rolling the dice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we've got time for, let's dive into one more. So one of my favorites. Let's talk about Jordan Davis.
Yeah. Jordan, man, so I had heard about Jordan through, Ben Strain, a publisher in town, is good friends with my wife, who's also a publisher in town. And he had been like, hey, I'm working with this young artist, Jordan Davis, and they had been trying to get us together for a while, and we actually got together, I think, one other time before that, for like a half day, because I think I had to leave town or something, and so we got like a half song, and it didn't like just mesh right away or anything, but we'd been trying to get us back together, and I wrote with a guy who's on Singles Up, Stephen Dale Jones, pretty frequently. We were good writing buddies, and somebody had said to me, like a couple months before this write was set up, like I was talking about my wife, my current wife, and they were like, I was like, all she wants to do is just like drink and eat pizza late, and they like looked at me, and I was like, I'm gonna lose my mind, like, you know, I can't keep eating like this or whatever. And they're like, and they looked at me and they were like, you want to single her up? And I was like, oh man, there's something on that. And so I wrote it down, and I had it for like a couple months. And then I remember I threw it out to 2 other artists, and they didn't bite on it. And, thank God they didn't, because it was just like the perfect song for Jordan stylistically and everything. And I threw it out to him, and you could tell there was still just like this uneasiness, and he still talks about it to this day. Like, he called his wife afterwards and was like, I either wrote like the biggest song of my career or like the dumbest song of my career today. And, I still think about it. It's so funny. It's just like, it's like a phrase, you know, that like, it makes perfect sense, but it's like, you know, it's just kind of quirky.
Yeah.
But yeah, we wrote that song in probably 45 minutes.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it just fell out. And some of the best ones do, man. Like, they're just like, when the idea is right and you're just like, yep, there's a song there. We know what this song is. It's just like, boom, it just comes out.
Goes back to that notes app.
Yeah.
And you have all those good ideas.
Yeah. And I think there was some magic in being like a young writer at the time, where it was like, I think I was naive to some of the things that, like, even musically, writing it today, I don't think I would write it the way I wrote it then. Like some of the note choices in that chorus, I think that there's some inflections just like naturally now that you do your first pass melody wise, but then you're constantly editing it, and finding those things, and it's like, I think it would have probably ended up different had I written it today, which is so funny. So there's some, for that song for me is like, innocence isn't the right word, but there's some like just freehand, I guess, that's in that. That's like, I don't know, that was pretty raw writing there for me, which is interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, because I think now it just like some of the way things were formed and stuff like that just would have been a little more calculated. But hey, it worked. So
it worked.
And I mean, that's the gift that keeps on giving, man. That song played like every morning when people driving to work. Yeah. So there's no complaints for me.
You want to play part of it?
Yeah, I could play a little bit of it. It hasn't even looked your way since you walked in, and I can't help it that I can't take my eyes off of you. Your favorite song just came on, and me and you are singing along, and he don't even know a single word. If he ever singles you up, if he he's ever stupid enough, I'ma be the first one calling you baby. If he ain't holding you tight, if he ain't treating you right, I'ma be the first one calling him crazy. 'Cause girl, it's just a matter of time until you find that the right guy staring you back into your eyes right now. No rush, but if he ever singles you up.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. It's so funny playing that because it's like, again, I do the tracks on a lot of the stuff I write, but those I did that track. I always try to finish it the day of, and I finished pretty much the whole track on that. And it got to the night, and I was like, man, there's something still missing on this. And the next day, I sat down and I listened to it, and I was like, it hit me like a ton of bricks. And the only thing I added was the baby. I just started singing it gang vocals over and over again. So that was the only thing missing from the demo on the first day. And then the next morning I came up, if he ever singles you up, if he's ever stupid enough, I'm going to be the first one calling you baby. And then I had a baby and the crazy.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, it's so crazy because anytime I play that out now, people always sing that back. So it's pretty nuts. Just the little tiny nuances. It's like, oh my gosh, if I would have just sent that out, I mean, would it have still been like what it is? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you never know.
Yeah.
So, pretty cool experience with that.
Love it.
Yeah,
Thank
man.
you, Janine, for pizza and drinking late and coming up with great
ideas.
ideas.
I know. Seriously. Thank you, Janine. Yeah.
All right. Well, before we wrap up, you know, you have obviously with everything with the publishing company with Janine and like all the, you know, all the hits and just, you know, and really like barely over 10 years, you know, of everything that you've learned in town. So many people that listen to this are aspiring songwriters or maybe still at Belmont or Vandy or whatever and moved to Nashville because of, you know, the industry. What kind of advice would you give you know, that newer camp of songwriter that's coming in?
Yeah, I think I would probably, I don't mean to, but I would probably be a little bit on the tough love side of just like, this town finds like crazy good talent.
Yeah.
Like it's there isn't some like group of people trying to keep out great talent. Like we're looking for it 24/7 and trying to find the next thing. So I say that to say, work on your craft. Nobody is pushing you out. Nobody is keeping you out. I think for me, there was, you know, I think I always try to go, what can I get better at? What can I do I try to listen to things, listen to mixes, listen to things like that to find the EQ differences in what I'm doing and somebody else is doing. And the truth of the matter is, it's like, you know, 3-4 years ago, I was a worse track guy than I am now. And, you know, it's like, I think that affects songs. And I think the same thing to a young songwriter is like, let down your guard, let down your ego, and really try to get great at this. And don't just go like, nope, I'm already ready. They're just, you know, they're not seeing it. Just really break down what you're doing. Listen to the radio. And like, Ashley Gorley has 70 number ones because he is an amazing songwriter.
Yeah.
It's like nobody's not that they're rooting against the next Ashley Gorley number one, but it's like, they're not like just trying to put this guy on a platform. He just writes hit songs. It's like, so I say to the young person, like let down your guard, let down your ego, and really pick apart your writing and try to get better. I think that sometimes ego can really hold people back, and from really getting to their full potential on it. So,
yeah, that's so good.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Yeah.
All right, so switching gears, advice for yourself. What if you go back to 8-year-old Justin, growing up in a family that didn't have music around?
Yeah.
now looking at what you do and all the songs that you've written that people are jamming to on the way to work, like what advice do you give 8-year-old you?
I think something I'm learning at 35 is that everybody always says life is short, but I also think life is long, and there's a lot of seasons, and things change. You know what I mean? It's like you're not always in the same season. And I think that's something that's very true to my life right now. My season right now that I'm in is very different than it was 3 years ago or 10 years ago. And you change as a person, you change as a writer, you change as everything, a business mindset, the things you want business wise, the things that matter to you, and I think I would say I used to always think things were so finite.
Yeah.
And I just think the older I've gotten, they're not. And, you may have a down moment, but down moments don't always stick around. You may have an up moment. Up moments don't always stick around. It's like, just really, I think, just keep pushing, keep moving, you know what I mean? And things settle out. They really do. So, you find your way. So.
Great advice.
Yeah. Appreciate it, man. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man. Thank you for spending some time with us this morning.
Yeah, man. Happy to.
Yeah, just it's always a blast to see you perform here.
Thank you so much. Yes.
You just keep writing great songs, man.
Yeah, I love it. I love to connect with just the people. It reminds you why you do it and everything. And it's a great place you have here, man. Love it.
Thank you.
Killer.
All right. Well, everybody out there listening, thank you so much for the support. Remember, life is long. You heard it with Dustin Ebach. This has been another episode of Stories Behind the Songs, and we will see you next time. Thank you for listening to another episode of Stories Behind the Songs with Chris Blair. Make sure to give us a follow on Spotify if you enjoyed this episode, and make sure you click that notification button so you can keep notified when new episodes come out. We release brand new episodes every Tuesday, and you can find us on YouTube at Stories Behind the Songs with Chris Blair or anywhere you listen to podcasts. Don't forget to send us a comment letting us know what you thought of the episodes. We love getting your feedback, and share this with your friends. The more we grow, the more that we can keep doing this. It's our mission to bring you all of these great stories behind the songs from some of Nashville's most iconic artists and songwriters, publishers, producers, everyone in between, and a lot of my great friends. We love what we do, and we love sharing their stories with you. We appreciate all of the continued support. Thanks also to all of our sponsors, and we will see you all next week.